Welcome everyone. Welcome to the next edition of the Celtic Wheel Wisdom of Cycles. I'm here with the gorgeous Katrina Brady,
Hello.
great astrologer. And yeah, we're here to look at the Festival of Bealtaine, which is the festival just coming up now in the next couple of days. And we, as we did at the spring equinox, the last season, which was just over 6 weeks ago, we'll be looking at how the wisdom of cycles within the Celtic tradition and the Celtic wheel in particular, as well as the wisdom of cycles within the planets and the astrology, how they can help inform us and maybe resource us at this time on the planet, this kind of, as we're all calling it now, this unprecedented time, a time of the great pause on the planet. So yeah, I'm just a quick introduction of myself. I lead women's groups. I'm a coach, I'm a facilitator, yoga teacher, meditation teacher, and really at the center of my work is all about wisdom, bringing the ancient traditional wisdom and connecting it in with the more modern wisdom from science, and just how it can resource us at this time. I really feel wisdom is rising and we're all the richer for it. So that's where I come in.
Yeah, and yeah, my name is Katrina Brady. I'm an astrologer. So even within astrology, really, astrology is the study of cycles, planetary cycles. So really at the sort of center of my own work is understanding these cycles, understand the wisdom that's being passed through them, both from a sort of historical but also a current perspective. Both personally and collectively. And I also teach the moon cycle specifically as well. So at the center of my work is, partly to the wisdom of cycles. So so excited to bring these two different perspectives in together, because they really just flow so beautifully and lend each other to each other. So yeah.
Yeah, and I loved our conversation at the spring equinox. So really looking forward to getting into Bealtaine. So yeah, how this works is like we make it a little bit of offering from each of the traditions, what is happening right now. So in the Celtic tradition, we'll be talking about Bealtaine and the themes. I'll be sharing a couple of themes, and then how you can really bring that into your own life, or ways of working with the energies of Bealtaine. And then Katrina will also be doing that with what's happening in the stars and the planets. But we'll be kind of kicking it between the two of us, rather than, it becomes more of a conversation, which is much more interesting. So yeah, let me kick off with just a little bit about Bealtaine. So Bealtaine is a cross-quarter day in the Celtic calendar. It's the third cross-quarter day. We would have had the cross-quarter day of Samhain kicks off the Celtic wheel. Then Samhain is in October. This is in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you can flip the dates, obviously. And the second cross-quarter day then is Imbolc, which is the 1st of February. And then the Bealtaine is the third, which is the fixed day. So each of these festivals have fixed days and astrological dates. The fixed day for Bealtaine is the 1st of May, which means this is the day that it's traditionally celebrated. But the astrological date, if I'm right, Katrina, is the 5th, am I right?
Yeah, it's the 5th of May. Yeah, which is the astronomical date that they would have observed in by the ancients as well. So yeah.
So it's good to know both of those dates, and to choose to celebrate it yourself on one or both of those. It's a lovely to create some ritual around that. So this is the third cross-quarter day, but it's actually, we're right halfway through the cycle now. We started at Samhain. We came from Samhain. Let me maybe share my screen and I'll pull up the Celtic wheel. So here's the wheel. on the shared screen, and you'll see this is where we started. So Samhain was the first festival, and then we went into the festival of the winter solstice, then Imbolc, spring equinox, Bealtaine is where we're at now. So we're halfway through the wheel, we're halfway through the cycle. And between each of the cross-quarter days are the solstices and equinoxes, just to orient ourselves around this time. So we are arriving here at Bealtaine, which is the annunciation of summer. It's the gateway into summer. It's also a really important festival because, like Samhain, it's opposite. It is a hinge day, which means, or a hinge festival, which means that on this festival, that there is quite a significant change. So at Samhain, we move into the dark half of the year, Gammas half of the year, where the feminine principle is dominant. So that's the feminine principle has been dominant for the last 6 months. And now at Bealtaine, just that we have a doorway into the Samos, the light half of the year, which will run until Samhain. And that's when the masculine principle becomes dominant. So at this threshold, the masculine principle, which is the archetypal, the way I work with it is the archetypal masculine within us becomes more dominant, and the feminine, she doesn't go underground so much. She is very much supporting, and I'll speak a little bit about that. But if you think about Bealtaine at this time of the year in the northern hemisphere, this is the time when outer activity is an expression and expansion. It's all and very, the life force is really bursting through in nature around us. Where at Samhain, it was the opposite. It was going inward. It was pulling in, so into the dark feminine, into the womb of the earth. But now we're moving out. So that's the masculine movement, is out, agency, action, commitment, all of that. So this is where we're moving in at this festival. So that just gives us a sense of where we are. So it is a very important festival. It's the second most important quarter day after Samhain, and they share a lot of similarities in the ritual. Let me just stop sharing. There's just a couple of themes that are worth mentioning around this time of the year, around Bealtaine in the Northern Hemisphere. One of them is, of course, fertility. This was when there was a real celebration of the fertility having returned around Imbolc. It's now really been celebrated at this festival. And this would be seen in Bridget the Mother is the goddess, is the aspect of the goddess that is also in Bealtaine, the flower maiden. So a lot of flowers, the whole blossoming. Here I've got my May.
I have that here too.
Yeah. Bridget's cross from Imbolc. So now she has shapeshifted from at Samhain, she was the Cailleach. In February at Imbolc, she becomes the maiden, and now at this festival at Bealtaine, she is Bridget the Mother. So she's the young aspect, just like Bealtaine or the flower maiden, the young aspect of fertility of the land goddess too, and it's a real celebration of that. The other symbols that are, the great fire at Ishnok is where it was celebrated at the centre of Ireland. This incredible fifth province, which was known as the fifth province. It's a very mystical concept that was, a portal into the other world. But it also really represents the center of, the center is such an important aspect in the Celtic tradition. The direction of the center is really about, sovereignty and about enlightened warriorship, where the king and the queen, or the king and the goddess, come together. So that's another theme that we would work with. And the fire, the fire represented the solar masculine, again, that nod to the masculine returning, and the sun, the strengthening sun, the healing aspect of the sun. And the fires were also, they purified. Cattle were driven through between two fires in order, they were going to be put back up on the pastures out onto the pastures, and so they were driven through the fires in order to protect them and purify them for the summer. And the other thing is the veil is thin, just like at Samhain, the veil is thin. You know, it's the 2 times of the year that the veil is thin. So there, you know, there was a lot of stories around fairies and witches stealing the butter from the milk, which would really represent that fertility, or stealing your luck for the, you know. So a lot of great rituals and traditions that were the people would really really want to bring, you know, really protect their luck, their abundance, all that is represented by the summer. So you know, the other thing we see a lot of, or a lot is flowers, you know, and again that goes back to the flower maiden, but also this blossoming expansion that happens at this time of the year. These are some of mine from the garden. And we see how the buds are just opening, so really opening and expanding into flowers, and we're just getting this swollen sense of fullness and aliveness all around us in nature. So, Katrina, I don't know if you want to speak to any of those. I can bring it. I want to bring it back into like how do we work with those themes in our own lives? There is one other. Let me just finish, and it's connected to the center. It's the marriage of the sacred masculine and feminine. That's another important theme at this time, again in the processions, and a lot around, you know, sacred eros and, you know, wild revelry. And there was you know, our ancestors celebrated this festival with wild revelry. I mean, it's connected to the fertility, of course, as well, but just this sense of the return of the summer and of the fire and the sun and wild revelry, and then this beautiful connection and marriage between the sacred feminine and sacred masculine.
Yeah, it's so lovely. I was thinking, you know, when we talk about, you know, the veil is thin, you know, I feel like that's a phrase that's used a lot too. But it's like, if you actually think about it, you know, with the energy between of Samhain and Bealtaine, or Scorpio and Taurus, you know, when the veil is thin, like what that means is that, you know, these sort of the unseen, you know, these spiritual entities in a way are come into our physical reality, and it's like, you know, 2 times a year where, you know, we can actually experience them in real time. And I think that's just so interesting, because you know, what a beautiful thing to have been recognized, you know, through time, you know, in a sense, which is, I think, something really important to sort of reconnect back into when we are remembering this wisdom that's there, that, you know, that everything that that the mundane world, you know, in a sense, is a place where we can access, you know, these other realities as well, you know.
Yeah. And with the Celtic tradition, the other world was really very much, wasn't another place. It was very much experienced as something that was alongside us, you know, alongside us, not somewhere other than here. So I think, yeah, that's a big piece.
Yeah. May I ask as well, I'm just curious about the use of fire within the Celtic festivals. Is that just on the fixed, you know, days of Bealtaine, was it Bealtaine and Bach?
No, you mean the cross quarter days. So those,
sorry, cross quarter days.
the cross quarter days
are
are
fixed days, but cross quarter days.
Okay.
Are they exclusive to that, or is fire something that has been used in all of the festivals?
It's used in a lot of the festivals, you know. I think it's used as celebration in a lot, but the bonfire in particular at Samhain and Bealtaine are really important, you know.
Okay.
And you know, because the solstices would be, and the equinoxes would be associated with fire festivals. The cross quarter days are more associated with, even though fire is used, they wouldn't be seen as fire festivals. They'd be seen more as earth festivals. They're where the tribe and the earth were really, there was a celebration of some threshold in the tribe and the earth, the work between the tribe and the earth, whereas the actual fire festivals are the solstices and the equinoxes. But fire is a symbol used in a lot of ritual, even at in these cross quarter days too.
Yeah, and what a beautiful symbol of solar energy as well, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's solar masculine. Yeah. I think one of the things that's really interesting at this time on the planet, when we're all in lockdown, or half the globe is in lockdown, is, you know, it shows us the polarity. It shows us a couple of things. First, it really heightens the fact that, you know, there's such polarity that we're always working with as humans. But at this time, you know, when actually we're all being called to be still and quiet and move in and be confined, they're very much energies of Samhain, you know, and of death and destruction. A lot of, you know, people have lost their jobs, there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of disruption. That's very Samhain energy. And yet we're in the northern hemisphere, we're at a place where the energy is about, in nature around us, particularly on the Celtic lands, nature, it's showing us, it's unapologetically expanding and opening and flowering, and it's showing us the polarity. And I think there's a massive opportunity there to work with those polarities in our lives, you know. Do we, at this time of crisis, like, are you more drawn to be in the Samhain energy of more contemplative, more turning inward, or do you feel called to be out and show up in a different way, which would be more active? And both are needed right now on the planet, I believe. Except I would say that's one of the important things, and again, a lesson or an energy that we can take from Bealtaine is, well, even if I'm going to show up and I feel like it's time for me to take a lead and take a step and work more outwardly at this time with our planet and what's happening, that even if I'm doing that, it's really important that that's very much masculine energy, that I always keep the feminine underneath. So I keep coming back to check in with myself, check in, just make sure that I move between the polarity of Samhain and Bealtaine. So I come back, and one day I may feel like, or one week I may feel like I need to be in deep contemplation. Another time I might feel, as I sit in that contemplation, it's time to move. So really to be aware of that. That's one of the important things. Another piece I think is important that we can take from Bealtaine is the sovereignty, our own really coming into, it's time for all of us to really start to live from our sovereignty. And that does not, you know, sovereignty is a big motif in the Celtic tradition. I won't go into it here, but it's again where the masculine and feminine really are in dance with each other. But we center ourselves, we know what our truth is, and we move from a very deeper part of us. You know, we're in a post-truth world. Lots of different narratives about what's happening. We're all being pulled in different directions. How are we making sense of this? But to really, again, come back and use this great global pause to connect with ourselves more deeply. So we move from a deep, sovereign inner authority within ourselves. We make sense from really touching deep inside ourselves. The wisdom is inside you. You know, this is what I believe, really inside us. So we make meaning, but we also become agents within the world. And that's for me the living a sovereign life. And I work a lot with women, and so many women have such incredible wisdom to share. So it's really I encourage people to go in, even if it is a time of expansion.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's where our power is, in a way. That's why we've been
Yeah,
systematically conditioned away from the knowledge and wisdom of cycles, you know, away
yeah,
from the knowledge of even the seasons and, you
yeah,
know, patterns of growing and everything, you know, in the sense that that energy that is sort of natural and organic in nature is something that's also within us, because we are also cyclical in nature. So even as women with our menstrual cycle, in a sense, there is a power, you know, that's in that. So it's interesting, all those, you know, different layers of you know, shame that's specifically around our body or our menstrual cycle, or even within the past, you know, several decades, where, you know, as consumers, we've been conditioned away from, you know, how do we source food, how do we grow food, you know, where that once was sort of just something that we all knew in a way, but, you know, slowly we've been sort of purposefully, you know, in a way, taken back and away from nature. So I feel like these times, you know, within the wheel, you know, which is this fixed energy, you know. I'll just share
Yeah, great.
my own screen there, of this fixed energy, which, you know, which is within astrology is an energy that, you know, we talk about a lot, we consider a lot, especially, you know, we're moving into a period where there's quite a few retrogrades at the moment, you know, and it's like really, you know, retrograde is a time for stillness, it's a time for reflection, which is sort of echoing the importance of that. And, you know, even within that, it's interesting to see, like, as a collective, how do we respond to retrograde energy? You know, there's a lot of talk about how things will go wrong, and, you know, this and that, don't go on the computer, you know, that's specifically Mercury retrograde, but it's really retrogrades and fixed energy are just calling us in for that time of stillness and pause. So it's interesting that, you know, maybe on a collective level, this is an energy that we're still needing to integrate, something that we still need to sort of sit in, and really just sort of sitting in our body, sitting in our own truth, and feeling what's there, you know, especially in a world where that has been sort of, you know, we've had to focus more on cardinal energy, so masculine energy of exerting, going out into the world, you know, that is our comfortable place, you know, whereas within the fixed energy, that's something that we're learning to be comfortable with more on a collective level. You know, we all have an individual connection with that as well. So I find, particularly with these points, even within the astrology wheel, they're very important as well.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what's in the planets that, you know, is connected into the themes of Bealtaine.
Yeah,
What's here at
yeah,
this time.
yeah, they're beautiful, and what the Bealtaine chart is connected in with. So, and just to sort of connect this into what you were saying earlier about the connection between Bealtaine and Samhain. So this is always following around the moon cycles as well. So 2 days after Bealtaine, astronomical Bealtaine, which is on May 5th, we have the full moon in Scorpio. So the full moon is always going to really highlight the polarity of whichever axis it's falling into. So the full moon in Scorpio, Scorpio is opposite Taurus. So much like Samhain is opposite Bealtaine, it's highlighting the polarity between these two specifically. So I thought, how beautiful on the day of, you know, astronomical Samhain, the moon is working up to this. It's working up to the full moon phase. So in the way that I practice the moon cycles, the full moon is connecting back to the new moon of that sign. So the full moon in Scorpio is connecting back into the new moon in Scorpio, which and some people will consider that lunar Samhain, you know, as well. So it's really highlighting this progress that we've sort of made, you know, over the past 6 months, you know, because it's literally the midpoint of the cycle, whether it's the, you know, the moon cycle or whether it's the Celtic cycle, it's the same thing that's happening there, which is interesting. Which, for me, you know, quite simply, the full moon in Scorpio energy is about sort of developing our emotional intelligence by going inwards, you know, reflecting on sort of what the lake within is, you know, sort of the visual that we would associate Scorpio energy with is, you know, a lake is contained water. So much like with Scorpio energy, it's all of the emotional energy that we store within our own bodies, you know. So whenever we're alternating, you know, within the realms of Scorpio, or much like within Samhain, it's an invitation to go deep within ourselves, go deep within that lake within ourselves, go deep within the water within ourselves, to really know ourselves, to go into our shadow aspects, you know, because sometimes too, working with this energy, you know, because you're going really deep within your own waters, and sometimes what's at the bottom there, you may not know what that is. It's about sort of integrating those shadow aspects. And to me, you know, part of my own journey with shadow work is really just integrating those elements of loss within myself, those rejected aspects of myself, you know, that have happened sometimes that's an ancestral loss that I've been carrying that I need to integrate, or sometimes that's a personal loss or personal rejection that I've experienced, that I've sort of carried within me. But it really sort of takes that sort of wading through one's own sort of emotional energy to really intimately understand that. But because of the fixed nature of Scorpio, it's really just that personal journey of going within that. So, and within this moon cycle, that would have started in Scorpio, and it's kind of coming into its culmination next week with the full moon in Scorpio as well, which is connecting back into the midpoint of Taurus as well, which is also reminding us that, when we sort of go into our own waters, where we sort of tend our own emotional waters, where we fill our own cup back in, it's always connecting back into how am I showing up and embodying in the world as well. That the two are sort of always indelibly connected, in a sense too. Much like, in nature at the moment, it's blossoming. So, but it's like, that blossoming is there because of all of the sort of the water that has been absorbed, all of the care, all of that has gone into the nurturing of that tree or that plant over time, and now it's in full bloom. And in a way, we can see that within ourselves. When we sort of take care of our own sort of inner emotional waters, that's connected to our own sort of physical health, or that's connected to how we feel like we're blossoming or sort of showing up in our own lives as well. So
yeah, because in the wheel, when I work with that, I love that, that within Bealtaine is a deep sound, that within, in order for us to expand, we must expand from the deepest part of ourselves. Otherwise, it's an expansion that comes from our strategic mind and often doesn't, hits barriers. I mean, not that we don't hit barriers, but we're really taking risks at Bealtaine. We're taking risks, stepping outside the comfort zone. And if you have that, this is where the feminine has to really support the masculine, because as we're taking risks, we can harden, we can harden against that. Whereas if we're willing to just stay with the feminine practices of like of self-compassion, and we stay soft as we expand, and we don't lose ourselves in the external world and the external expression. We stay very connected, which again is back to the sovereignty piece. Yeah, amazing.
Yes,
I love how these things are showing up. Yeah, in both.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other beautiful aspect of this fixed access, within the astrological wheel, which echoes back to the Celtic wheel too, is that idea that the idea of the seen and the unseen are connected. So the spiritual and the physical worlds are connected in a sense, but also that, everything that is sort of around us, that sort of the cosmic energy, the universal love, energy, it's not something that's just externalized, it's something that's internalized. That is something that we all carry within ourselves. We are a physical manifestation of universal energy. So I find too, within the energy of fixed earth, Taurus energy is coming back into that idea that my body is the temple for source energy. I am so loved that I've been given this body, I've been given this opportunity for embodiment, because I am an extension of something greater than myself as well. In a way, I am a goddess. And if we really sort of connect into that idea that, I'm a goddess, that connects us immediately back into that idea of unconditional love, that we feel when we connect in with source energy. That is something that is within ourselves as well. And I think that it's a really beautiful time of year, really, to sort of connect back into that idea that is something that I always carry within myself. That I don't need to journey outside. I don't need to necessarily go to a sacred or holy place. The sacred and holy place is my body. It's within myself as well. I just need to journey inwards and remember that sacred connection is always within me too. which I think is another sort of beautiful remembrance. Because with myself working with cycles, this is all something that is being remembered. You know, when we teach astrology in our school, Blue Rose Astrology, it's not that we're teaching you anything you don't know already. You know, that this is all something that we're going through the process of remembering, you know, within our own life. It's just about sort of recognizing it too. And I think that it just adds such a beautiful quality to it, where it's like, oh, this is already here. It's not necessarily something that I need to acquire or transcend into, in a sense too. So
and I love that also, Katrina, because I love how, you know, in these days when we're confined to our homes, we can find that inner shrine, that inner, you know, power place that we would maybe go to Ishnuk or one of the sacred sites to celebrate Bealtaine, that actually you can celebrate it here. And if you have a garden, a beautiful thing to do, or even I would plant out on the window if you don't, is to go out at dawn on May Day, either the 1st or the 5th, and wash your face in the dew, because in the dew has absorbed the first rays of the May Day sun, and that's the masculine and feminine. The feminine being the dew, and the masculine being the sun. And that's, you know, it was an elixir or such, or a magical potion. Women often did it. Went up high on hills or met at wells and washed their faces in the first dew or water of Bealtaine sunshine. And the other beautiful thing to do is to just put flowers on your neighbor's threshold, a door or a gateway. That was a great tradition that I did even when I was a child, and that was historically or traditionally went back to, you know, protection of the, you know, protection against the fairies, but it's a beautiful tradition. So it's maybe in your communities of confinement, maybe you could get yourselves or your children or friends to do that, and let's bring the Bealtaine rituals into our confinement.
Yeah, for sure. And that is certainly, you know, when we look at the astrology, what's going into, you know, what is the sun, what other planetary energies that the sun is connecting Ceres. And Ceres is the consciousness of the earth, really. You know, it's Mother Earth, you know, and so in the astrology back into
Just
from that idea, you know, all plants, all things in nature have a soul's consciousness, you know, in a way. So when we interact with these physical elements, when we interact with nature, you know, it has this spiritual connotation with that as well, which those sort of rituals that you're speaking of just feels like just adds sort of another lovely flavor to that as well.
Gorgeous, really nice. So let's maybe circle it back into what people could do in the next last 2 or 3 minutes of this. You know, what is it, anything that you would suggest that people could bring this wisdom into their lives right now? And do you want to just offer what you would think?
Sure. So yeah, so from that idea that, you know, if we go back to that idea that, you know, my temple, you're saying like any sort of ritual where you can honor yourself.
You're breaking up quite a bit there, Katrina. I'm not sure if it's my internet or yours. It happens every now and again. So just want to, maybe I will just offer and then you can come back in. A couple of things I would suggest is really work with that polarity between Samhain and Bealtaine, the polarity of do I feel more drawn to be contemplative and reflective and be more in the pause, or do I feel like I need to act in the world? Or can you work with both? Because that's when it's really effective, where we work between the polarities, and that's an important. And the second piece is to honor, or to really honor your own sovereignty, and take time with your sovereignty.
I my internet dropped out there for a second.
Okay, you dropped out. Yeah, no, I was just completing it there.
Sorry.
I'll just finish on mine, and
Yeah.
then I'll run across to you. Just
Yeah.
the second
Yeah.
piece is sovereignty. Yeah, just to really honor your own sovereignty, know your own mind. Be interested in what are the narratives you're hearing. Like, there's so many narratives about what's happening on the planet right now, but just take time to really reflect, and can you open to different perspectives and yet know what your truth is, and then hold that quite lightly and stay listening, but know what your inner truth is. That's an important one. And then if you are in any way finding that you're very confined, know that there's always a way of expanding. We can always be expanding in little ways. You know, we can expand ourselves, taking risks, maybe to be a little bit more vulnerable with your loved ones, or to be choosing to be steady when maybe you're not feeling like you're steady. Can you expand in those ways? So that's the energy of Bealtaine, to expand, to really work the, you know, the feminine and masculine, the confinement and the expansion, and then really just start to inquire and explore your sovereignty. What does it mean for you to be sovereign? What would it be if you were more sovereign in your life? Yeah,
Beautiful.
welcome back, Katrina.
Yeah. Sorry, my internet kicked me off there.
That's okay.
So yeah, just so as I think I was saying before I got off, was, you know, just that idea that, you know, my body's a temple. Anything that you can do to sort of nourish yourself, that can make you feel good, from that idea that, you know, I am a goddess, you know, keeping that sort of idea in mind. What can I do for myself? You know, even if it's that simple as just making something that you really love to eat, or, taking, just like you did there, taking a cutting, you know, a flower from the garden, putting it in, anything that, you know, connects into that sense of self-love for yourself, you know, can be a beautiful practice. As well. And also, because this energy is connecting with Mercury, it feels like too, you know, as you were saying, you know, with all this information that's going on, you know, that there can be this sense of overwhelm that goes on with it as well. So, you know, I think it's a really important time to look at, okay, you know, what to sort of ground my nervous system at the moment. What is actually nourishing me at the moment? You know, what sort of communication even feels nourishing? You know, is spending too much time on my phone, you know, is that sort of is that an energy leak that I'm experiencing at the moment? You know, is sort of absorbing all these different information that's there, you know, because there is so many different theories and ideas that are going all over the place, and it's like, you know, it feels like with what's being relayed in the astrology chart is just like, okay, if I just step away from all that and I put my feet on the ground, what do I actually want to do? Do I want to do nothing? There's beauty and simplicity in nothing. Allow yourself to do nothing, you know, because it's about sort of nourishing mind, body, and soul. So it's like, how is the quality of our mind at the moment, you know? And I think too, with Taurus or fixed earth energy, is just sort of really getting back into the simple pleasures of life as well, and really sort of recognizing what do we find nourishing at the moment, whether it's for our bodies or if it's for our mind as well. It seems really important too. So I think that's another really important takeaway from this too.
Great, thank you, Katrina. That's amazing. Yeah, because it feels like the whole invitation of this time of the great pause is to actually to just come in order to expand back out, you know. And we know from these cycles that this will pass. This time will pass, and it will move. And can we really take what this time is asking of us, so that we can shape the future in a way that when we move into a more true expanded phase of the planet and humanity again. So yeah, so happy Bealtaine, everybody. Enjoy this beautiful festival, even in a time of confinement. And thanks, Katrina.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having. Thanks to everyone watching as well.
Yeah. And we'll see you back here for the summer solstice in about 6
Yeah.
weeks' time. Yeah. Okay, loads of love.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.